The weekly Industry Angel podcast hears from business leaders and entrepreneurs who share their stories and that all-important light bulb moment. This can inspire us all and maybe scratch that itch and kickstart that idea that keeps you awake at night. Welcome to episode 40 of the Industry Angel. Thanks so much for getting in touch as usual. It's been great to hear that 2017 is going so well for you. I told you I had a good feeling about it. You guys have too. A lot of you are starting your own businesses. I'm really interested in some of the feedback I've had about you guys having side hustles and you're ready to fire yourself. If that's you, drop me a line. I'm really interested. And you never know, what could get you on. I also mentioned that Adele McClay from episode 31 was running her business growth online bootcamp this week. That's from the 30th of Jan to the 5th of Feb. There's 35 presenters sharing some fantastic content, but don't worry if it's past the 5th of Feb now, you can still get a seat. There's a link for a free seat in the blog section on industryangel.com, but if you're a bit late, you can get lifetime access to the video sessions, so you'll be able to watch my session back. I was second up. No pressure, Ian. I really enjoyed it, and the viewers did too, actually. I've had quite a bit of feedback, mostly regarding my accent. But yeah, it was good. It was good. I enjoyed it. The sessions are all about, sales, marketing, strategy, finance, all with a view to grow and enhance your business. So if you like this podcast, you'll like the bootcamp, and it's free. So jump on the blog section. Quick shout outs, who've got Dale Geach and Andrew Smythe, who enjoyed Ted Rubin. Regular listener Derek Curtis, he's having a great start of the year. Well done, Derek. To recent subscriber Rebecca Hatman, welcome aboard. Hilary Kinney enjoyed our Aussie friend John Lagodakis. Hilary's off to Melbourne herself, so safe travels, Hilary. And everybody else, keep in touch. If you want to shout out, let me know. Love to hear from you. I know a few of you have mentioned about Industry Angel t-shirts as well, so watch this space. Why not follow us on Twitter and Facebook? Keep up that way. We've got a newsletter as well. Don't forget to review the show on iTunes and Stitcher. That really helps. So please do that. Right, less of the waffle. Let's get on with today's guest. Today we have fellow podcaster from the Make It Snappy Productivity Show. Welcome to the Industry Angel, Nick Snapp.
Thanks, Ian. It's great being here, man.
Excellent. Great to have you with us now. I need to hear about Florida, okay?
Definitely. Well, we were chatting before we started recording, and it is it's about 25 centigrade. So I said Celsius versus Fahrenheit because I know that's going to annoy you over there a little bit. But it's really, really nice right now. So I really feel bad that you're what's the expression, like freezing your knickers off? Is that how that works? Is that how that goes? I don't know. I don't even know.
Women wear knickers, yeah.
Oh.
So if I was freezing my knickers off, it would be pretty weird.
It'd be very weird. I'm gonna learn the different expressions. I love it though. Yeah, I've been since I've been podcasting, Ian. There's a lot of people from the UK that I've been interacting with regularly, and it's just all these different expressions. Where I think I heard it on one of your episodes because I was doing a little prep, and you said, "What's the word for calendar?" There, you said diary. And I'm like,
oh yeah.
Diary. That to me is like Anne Frank in the Holocaust. You write your stories and your journaling. So there's just little things like that just kind of trip you up a little bit, but it's fun, right?
Oh, well, it is indeed. And it is really fun. These knickers are a bit tight, but I'm enjoying myself. So, Nick, you're a productivity...
Didn't want that going there, did you? Not at all.
Luckily, there's no one in the house, so they can't see what I'm wearing, so it's fine. It's fine. So, Nick, you're a productivity strategist, yeah?
I am.
Right. Come on. Where did the term come from? Give us an idea of your background.
That was just I've been wrestling with what my title should be for probably the whole time I've been an entrepreneur. I mean, there's strategist, there's coach, there's mentor, advisor. What else? There's consultant. There's all these different terms for what we could do to help people with productivity. And I settled on strategist. And because I hate the word coach. I hate it. And I don't know why. It's just something that just lights me up. But I have an engineering background, Ian. So I came from corporate America, and I worked in the phosphate industry where we were building $100 million projects, all these massive tanks and conveyors and concrete going everywhere. But I really like the idea of taking a problem or an opportunity and figuring out like what really is that problem, getting a group rallied around it, and then taking it through the process of managing the project. For me, that really lit me up. I just didn't want to work in corporate anymore. I really got frustrated and tired of reporting to anybody but myself. So I transferred those skills, those like project management, and then also continuous improvement. So I'm a Lean Six Sigma guy. I look at different processes and figure out how to make them better, more efficient, and apply those to personal productivity. And so that's kind of what I do.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So when did you fire yourself from the corporate world?
I was actually about 17 months ago. 17 months ago. And it's been a roller coaster. It really has. I've learned so much. When I first started my company, I was going to go into different factories and do these Lean Six Sigma kind of studies and help them get their numbers up. And I actually did. 3 days after my last day at my company, I got work out in Los Angeles, which is a 5-hour plane ride from where I'm at, and in Tampa, Florida. And I had a great experience. I went into this factory and we really had some good work and made some great progress, had a great project. But I realized I'm away from my family for 4 weeks. This is not what I signed up for. I can't do that. So I really had to kind of pivot already. Like after the first month, I had to pivot, figure out what am I going to do with my life. And I settled on doing productivity coaching. I met a coach and tried to figure out what am I really good at? Because I never really thought of it as productivity. I thought of it more as like efficiency, effectiveness.
Sure.
But
yeah.
Productivity is kind of the closest space that you can get into in this realm. So I did the coaching thing for 13 months, and I've had another pivot, Ian, actually in very recent months. So coaching was fine. It worked really well, but now I'm starting to think like an entrepreneur. I'm thinking more like an entrepreneur now versus just a self-employee, if that makes sense.
It does, and that's a great story. Now, I'm going to push on this. I know we're talking about productivity, but I want to take you back. So there's a lot of our listeners are going to be in this space, and I think this show is very much for people who are in the corporate world and want to jump ship.
Right.
So before you jumped, Nick, did you have that contract in place over in was it LA? Did you have that in place, that
I
client?
did not,
or did
no.
Did you have a runway of being able to pay yourself then if you didn't get a
client?
Yeah,
so I got a story, all kinds of stories today. So
Excellent.
I worked for an international company, and I had this like international carrot dangling in front of my face for the last 2, almost 3 years of my career in corporate. I really wanted to move my family international. I want to give them a second language experience. And I had a lot of different opportunities come and go. So we almost moved to Brazil. We almost moved to Chile. We almost moved to Spain. I'm trying to think where else. Canada, if you can call that international, right next to us. But, so there's like a lot of these different opportunities came in. And the last one, I got so kind of frustrated with like them dangling that like prize in front of me and it not working out and them giving some sort of excuse of why they could send me international, that I said, you know what, forget this. I'm going to go ahead and save for sabbatical. So I saved like a madman a year's worth of my salary. So we could basically live for a year and not have to worry about anything. And I go ahead and try to figure out what I'm going to do with my life after that. But I just wanted to get out of there, just get out of the US and just try something different. So I did my research and I looked at Uruguay, which is in South America. It's right up next to Argentina and in between Argentina and Brazil. And we went down there. We took like 10 days. Kids stayed with their grandparents and my wife and I went there. In my mind, it was like, I'm going to find a place to live. God, this is like, we're scouting it all out. My wife's mind, she's like, yes, it's just a nice vacation. And so I went down there and she did not like it at all. I love the people. I love the culture. I've always liked Hispanic culture. My wife's Puerto Rican, so and I speak fairly good Spanish. And I had a really good time, but she didn't like it. But surprise to me was that I went down there to network with some people. Because once you say you're going to go to a different country, you start organically meeting people that are from that country or that know people from that country. So I met somebody and I was going to network with that person, just kind of get to know them. And I went to the office over there in jeans and like an untucked button down shirt, like looking super casual and on vacation because that's where I was. Yeah. And I found myself in a job interview. And these people, one of the guys drove like 3 or 4 hours to come see me. I had no idea. And they started kind of interviewing me for this job, and they wanted to hire me to be a port manager down there. Of like a major port, I would have had like 200 people under me in Uruguay, off the Rio Uruguay. And I said, that's really generous. Like thank you for considering me. It's humbling and totally unexpected, but I need to talk this over with my family. So they said, no problem. We have 6 months. The person in that position is going to give us some time. So we have time for you to get back with us in 30 days. So that's kind of what I did. My wife's like, no. Finally, she said yes. And that was about 3 weeks later. I said, I'm going to go ahead and apply for this job. She gave me the green light. And I got really, really excited. But after 3 weeks, the excitement on their end kind of wore off. And they're like, okay, well, we'll put you through to our hiring consultant. So Ian, I actually interviewed in Spanish for 2 interviews, one with the hiring consultant, another with a psychologist for like an hour each. One of the most stressful things I've ever had to do in my life. But I got through it somehow. And at the end of all that, I didn't get the job. And it was that point where I said, you know what, this international thing just isn't meant to be right now. I have a year's worth of saving from wanting to save for the sabbatical. Let me go ahead and open my business now. And I had enough contacts in the industry to answer your original question that I felt secure enough that I'd be able to get work when I did actually leave. And I did within 3 days. I was end up getting work, and it worked out. I ended up getting on retainer with a client for the first year. I had some payment issues and stuff that we decided to kind of part ways. And then I started going like full-time productivity coaching. But my realization after doing that, making that pivot, was that this coaching thing, like I said, I started thinking like an entrepreneur. It's not scalable. And I enjoy it, but is this really what I want to be doing with the rest of my life? Do I want to be hustling for clients constantly? And I decided that really wasn't the answer after a year into it. So I think it's like, as an entrepreneur, you really got to like be flexible and willing to look at yourself and your progress and be open to change. And that's something that I never really had to deal with too much before. Just had that constant flexibility and trying and iterating and failing. And like you have these moments of euphoria, and then there's like these just massive lengths of time where you just feel completely inept, you know? It's just, so it's been a really, really interesting journey. So.
Excellent. So it sounds like you've cracked it, but what is that pivot then, Nick? So if you're not going to hustle for clients all the time. So what is it?
Well, so it's 2016. At the end of this year, I'm no longer going to be doing coaching. So I decided that I have some contracts going on now that we're going to finishing up, and like I said, great relationships, everything's awesome. But I decided that I am going to build the most effective results-driven accountability platform that exists. And I talk about accountability, and this is kind of where the engineer ego thing kind of plays into me a little bit. So and kind of being aware of yourself and what you're good at in your market and stuff. And I think back, and after just from a validation perspective, and if your listeners are side hustlers right now or want to start a business, the number one thing you've got to do that I ignored for like the first 12 months is the whole concept of validating. You know, I was like, oh, it's coaching. People are doing it. I don't need to validate. It's already being done, whatever. Why can't I do it? And it was fine, kind of. I moved along and I did fine. I made money and I replaced my income for a period, and all was good. But from that experience, I was talking to somebody kind of out of frustration, like this just, I'm not getting it to the point where I feel like it's really going to take off. And he goes, what you're good at, Nick, is accountability. Like in your face, not going to put up with your lame excuses, kind of accountability. Like you're calling people out, you're calling them to the carpet, and they're getting it done. I'm like, yeah, but look, I've got a master's degree in engineering. I got an MBA. Like that's it. Accountability. That's all I got. Like that's all I can bring to the table as an entrepreneur. Are you serious? I don't want to do that. He's like, no, just try it. And I tried. I did just out of a whim. I just did a beta test group, and I sold the thing I sold the test group out like in less than 2 days. And I felt like, wow, there's something here, you know? So now I'm in beta with this group and it's going great and people are loving it. So it's, I'm doing this accountability scalable platform with all different kinds of opportunities. I have a board of advisors of like 12 people now, 12 hard-hitting entrepreneurs where I go in the hot seat once a week with them and present my business model, and they tear it up and make me feel completely worthless, and then bring it back and say, no, wait, you're good. Like, we love you. You're on the right track. But I'm like, wait, you just totally tore all my stuff up. But so there's it's just constant, like I said, like it's a roller coaster of emotions in entrepreneurship. So since I have decided to give up coaching, you got to, and this is real, right? Like, I know on your show, you're looking like for real stories, real struggles.
Yeah,
like, this is real
definitely.
life, right? So I've had to humble myself and realize, okay, I can build a hustle, which in my case would have been like coaching to keep moving it forward, right? I could build this hustle to ultimately get to the hustle that I'm like the business, not even the hustle, the business that I'm really passionate about. I could build a hustle to get to my hustle, like take that step, or I could just do something that's going to bring in steady income and support my family while I'm building this thing on the side, while I'm building what I need to build. So I humbled myself recently, man. I humbled myself a couple of months ago, and I'm like, I am good. I do the project engineering thing, project management thing. I'm going to find a retainer client that I can get on for a certain number of hours every week. And I negotiate a fantastic rate that I never really thought I'd ever negotiate in this position, making more. Like now, when I look at it, I'm making more doing 20 hours a week for this particular retainer client than I was making doing like 60 hours a week as a full-time employee. So it's kind of cool, right? Being in that position, but nevertheless, I'm hourly. Like I'm a consultant charging hours to this particular person while I build this platform, but it took me out of a position of need. And sometimes you got to have that awareness. Like, I could continue to try to hustle for coaches and their clients as a coach, and it may come and the payoff will be greater and stuff like that. But do I really want to put my stress on that when I know what I want? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally do. And I really, thanks for sharing that. It's like,
Sure.
problem shared's a problem halved. It's, there's a lot of our listeners and me in my role as well. It's as an entrepreneur, you do have that roller coaster of emotions, and, just hearing from somebody else is quite reassuring sometimes. And I think what you said there, you're listening to your clients and you've pivoted. And I think that's key. I did exactly the same as you. I started a business thinking I was going to do X, and then you slowly pivot and do Y, and then your clients ask if you can do A, B, and C, and you just have to move and be really agile at the start.
That's right. You do. Yeah. But just thinking that, like, how can I take myself out of the picture? So I'm a productivity guy, and that's like fundamentally, like, I always talk about automation, outsource, that kind of stuff. But when I didn't take that concept to me, to business.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
And now it was an awakening. Like, when how I set this thing up now, the questions I'm being asked by my board, and all that relates to, like, really, how can this scale? What can you do to make this, to take you out of it? Like, you could be the figurehead because I have a little bit of a following here and people recognize me and trust me and stuff. But at the end of the day, am I in there grinding anymore? No. So I'm grinding to build this thing, but long term, it's not going to be the case. So that's something I'm really, really excited about. I feel like I know accountability. I know how to do it right. I know what people need and the stories and everything that have happened throughout my experience here as an entrepreneur. And it's going to be awesome, man.
So you're practicing what you preach now. You've got to, haven't you? If you're productivity, you've got to be productive. Have you heard of the term cobbler's shoes, Nick?
No, I haven't.
No, the cobbler's shoes. So he soles and heels shoes, but he's got the worst shoes because he's busy doing everybody else's.
Yes.
I use that term quite often because sometimes you've got to really practice what you preach, yeah?
You're right. You've got to walk the talk. And as a productivity strategist, if I'm even still going to call myself that's another story, right? There's a lot of pressure. And I talked to Eric Fisher about this. He does Beyond the To-Do List. I was on his podcast recently, and he and our friends, and I was like, Eric, do you feel this pressure, like, to be on point all the time with productivity? I sure do. Like, I don't want to be a hypocrite, right? I need to have all my systems and my processes like jam up. But at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all going to make these kind of mistakes. And to put that level of pressure on yourself, like for me in productivity and for you in your space, like it's unproductive. Like, you just got to do the best that you can and try to be the best example that you can, knowing that you're doing the best and that you're not purposely being a hypocrite, right? It's
sure.
It's a balance and stuff. But yeah, I'm getting to the point now where I like putting a little pressure on myself to be the most productive person I possibly can be, but I don't feel like the imposter syndrome,
Yeah. Well, it is. I'm a control freak, Nick, right? So this conversation is going to scare me because if you outsourced your email as well.
Okay. Yeah. So that's another story.
Man.
Ian, email's like, it's a hot button for me. I have a chip on my shoulder about email and stuff. And I wrote like a 5-part blog series on email and how to make the effective use of it. And because at the end of the day, like, it's all about other people's agendas in your box, right? And if you can't figure a way to control that and not let it dictate your day, then there's no way you can really move the needle forward. And as like a one thing enthusiast, which was a topic of the month, like Gary Keller and Jay Papasan's one thing, as a topic of my last month of my podcast, like you can't focus on the one thing that's going to make everything else easier or unnecessary. You can't do that if other people's stuff is coming in your day constantly. You've got to figure out a way to carve out the time and like unbalance your schedule to where you're focusing the majority on that stuff. So all that being said, like on the email outsource thing, I gave it like a really, really gallant effort. And then I realized outsourcing my email isn't my one thing. So what am I going to do to kind of combat this so I can still kind of do my one thing, but not like let email get hold of me? So I have my VA in there doing certain things. Like if I need to pay a bill, like he puts that in a certain folder. Like he does like just so if you were on my show, he'll craft email templates for me and get those sent out to the guests and that kind of stuff, but it's not like everything. So what do I do with everything else? At this juncture, I do the best I can and I kind of ignore everything else. You know what I mean? I don't. So I've outsourced to an extent, and there's going to be a time in my life where I'm going to be able to outsource it 100%. I know how to do it. I developed the templates and the process to do it, and one day I'll probably do a course on it as well. But at this point in my life, like this is not my one thing. It's not. So I got to figure out how to unbalance it.
So thinking about that unbalance, and what are the worst mistakes that we make from an unproductive point of view? What do you see all the time, and you just think, wow, what you do
over and over and over again? Your alarm wakes you up. It's probably your phone, and you hit snooze, and immediately you see the notifications coming on your email, your social media, and you check it immediately. And you might lay in bed there and do it for 10 or 15 minutes. Like there's so many people that do that. And I'm not trying to place judgment on somebody, but like it's really, that's the critical time in your day. You know, like that's the time where you got to really bring it home. And if you're going to work on your one thing, the one thing that's going to make everything else easier or unnecessary for you, then for me, that's the time to do it. I'm going to get up and I'm going to bang it out for at least an hour, preferably 2, so that anything else that happens in my day, like I know I at least accomplished that. So I got up today and I'm launching a product, and I had to sort through the landing page issues that would actually make it live. Like that's really going to, this thing goes live, I can sell it. It's going to make everything else easier. Right. So that's what I knocked out, and no distractions, nobody barging in to ask me questions. I mean, I work at home, so I don't have people like interrupting me in the cubicle anymore, but you know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of things that could come up throughout the day. So that's one big thing. It's like just distractions and things coming into your life. So one of the, if it's not 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, you still want to like maintain that level of focus, then there's some awesome apps out there for your desktop or your Mac. I have a Mac, so there's a self-control where you can go in there and you could forbid yourself to access certain web pages for a limited period of time, which has been hugely helpful. Like you think, oh, I can control the temptation. No, you can't. You can't. Like Slack and Facebook and Twitter, like all that is on my blacklist. And if I got to focus for an hour, I set it for an hour and I can't access that. You could get around it, but you really got to jump through hoops to do it. And we're too lazy to do that anyway. So that's one of the biggest hacks for me, is just figuring out innovative ways to get rid of those distractions and not put yourself in the position where you're going to get distracted.
We've actually discussed this before on the show, and I've mentioned that I've got a little kitchen timer, and the fact of like turning the kitchen timer to 30 minutes or whatever, that sort of human, turning and then leaving it to tick, 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 tick away and then go off in 30 minutes. It's just the fact that I've turned it just plays with your mind a little bit, and it just sits down on the table, and it's gamification, isn't it, really? It
is, yeah, the Pomodoro Technique. And that's the one thing about, actually, I didn't mention it, my accountability program's got a gamification aspect to it. And that's one reason I'm really passionate about it too. So yeah, anytime you can set up something to create some competition with yourself, it's fabulous. Fabulous.
That's interesting. Now, you mentioned cubicles there, and obviously you're harking back to your former corporate life, and I'm sure that you saw so many unproductive people. I mean, I've worked with many colleagues, you know the ones. The first one's in the morning, the last one's to leave, but across the day they've probably done about 4 hours work.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. So I'm fortunate that in this particular situation, I still get to work from home. I need to go and report to a weekly staff meeting, but it's going to be out and about, going to the plants. Like I'm dictating. It's like for me, and you talk about control, dude, I'm a control freak. I'm such a control freak. So having to stay in a build, that's the main thing that drove me to entrepreneurship. Like it was my initial reason to want to be an entrepreneur, is to have control over my day. And then I progressed, I matured, I grew up and realized that no, my real reason is to actually, I want to help people get their time back so they can live the life that they want to live, and versus just being sucked into the black hole of, corporate. But anyway, so yeah, I negotiated to be able to only go to his basically weekly staff meeting and do my own thing. So but from a cubicle perspective, what was your original question? I apologize.
No, that's fine. I was just sort of saying, we've probably worked with many colleagues who are super unproductive, but they're the ones that are in the office first, and they kind of like to be the last ones out the door. But across the day, they don't really get much done. But they like to play the game that they're. I've been here for like 10 hours, and so people are sitting there in the cubicle world. Have you got anything for them?
Yes, I sure do. Oh man, like hacking corporate's my thing. Totally. Yeah, I did a whole month on hacking corporate on the Make Us Happy Productivity Show. So I've
worked with quite a few corporates I'd like to hack, but we're not going to go there.
Well, not like hacking computers. I call it hacking corporate. I call it hacking, breaking through the corporate noise and nonsense is what I consider hacking corporate. So
I was thinking more sort of Walking Dead hacking.
Maybe. Yeah, right. Hack through them all. Forget it.
Yeah, indeed.
Slow this mo down. Yeah. So for like the cube, like to address your first comment, like for whatever reason, and in the UK, it sounds like it's very similar here in the US, like the first person in the office, whether they're spending time at their desk or at the water cooler, like they're just viewed as productive and effective, where the opposite is true. So like my advice for corporate, I could just say one of the things that I used to do. So I went from just a very old school, like you need to be there. And I'm talking about the last 3 years of my career in corporate. I transitioned from project management into supply chain, something different. And I did it deliberately because I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur eventually, someday. I either was going to do international or I was going to be entrepreneur. I always had this dichotomy, like fighting against each other. But I was like, to give myself the options I need to create the life that I need and build this business, I need more flexibility. So I went from project engineering, where I was responsible to be in a plant, versus supply chain. Now I was responsible for the origins and the destinations and everything in between, so I had to kind of be around and out and about floating. Love that. But my predecessor planted his butt in that chair pretty much 50 hours a week. Like that was his thing. He was always there and people always saw him. Going out was a big deal. He asked permission, all that kind of stuff. So my first order of business was to show the value in me not being in my cubicle. So, and it's tricky. Like you've got to hacking corporate, this idea of hacking corporate for me, it's about how can you show the most value to the company first and then to yourself second. Like if you reverse it and it's all selfish intentions and stuff like that, it's not going to work. So I really believed in my heart that it was more valuable for me to be out and about. One, because I got a better mindset, right? Like I don't feel bitter. I don't feel like I'm missing out on life that's out there by watching life pass me by from my cubicle window. But the other part is that I really did add a lot more value when I was out and about creating relationships, talking to people and stuff like that. And then I found ways to get my work done where I wasn't distracted in that cubicle. So from day one, I went from an office. I was I was a senior, project manager. And I went from an office with a door and everything where I could kind of shut it and block everything down to a cubicle. And it was a promotion, which is kind of crazy because now I had a team under me, but I went to a cubicle. And I remember thinking like, this is not like, it wasn't working for me. This is horrible. The most distracting environment on the planet is a cubicle. So I made it very, very clear that I don't work best at my desk. If you want me to do something, you want me to really focus, I'm going to find another place to do it. So I even in my interview for this job, I made that clear. So there was no going back to where Nick also he's trying to hack his way through the system. Well, sure, I was, but for the mutual benefit of both parties, right? So in my interview, I remember they asked me, I'm kind of just take a little diversion here, but they asked me they're like, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I said, well, my former boss was the one interviewing me. And I said, well, I could potentially take your boss's job, work my way up the corporate ladder, but I got this entrepreneurial bug that I might need to address at some point. But I said, what I'll give you is the best 2 years that you've ever had in any employee in this position. And that's kind of the key. If you want to have the flexibility in the corporate world that you need, and I don't know, this might just be applicable to the United States. I wouldn't think, human psychology is human psychology. You've first got to prove yourself and you've got to kill it. Like, you've got to perform exceedingly well and show the value that you bring to the company exceedingly well before you can start escaping your cubicle, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that was it. So like I planted that seed early. It kind of shocked everybody looking at it, like, wow, he just said something I've never heard anybody say in an interview before. But it set the tone so that I won in my mindset. You're talking about mindset stuff, like my mind, I'm like, I'm leaving this place in 2 years. So I'm going to do what I need to do to get the job done exceedingly well so I can have flexibility, versus somebody with a corporate mindset that thinks like they want to take this job and they want to work their way up the ladder. So that switch right there was huge. And I think you can still, entrepreneurship isn't for everybody, right? It's not for everybody. It's only for people that are willing to go through all those feelings of ineptitude that I talked about before. But if you want to stay in corporate, you can still have that mindset in that you're not going to be in this job forever. You are going to be leaving and working your way up and growing. And this company, this corporation, doesn't have any control over your growth. You have control over your growth. So if you have the mindset that you're leaving, you're going to do what you need to do and not care what people think about your tactics because it's benefiting the company overall, then you can start taking measures to escape your cubicle and to minimize distractions and set boundaries, all the different things that I talk about with hacking corporate. Does that make sense?
Yes, it certainly does make sense, Nick. What's your thoughts on creating trust within an organization then? Sort of remote workers and,
right.
Do you need to have them in the office?
Well,
or are you sort of an advocate for letting them work remotely?
I'm absolutely an advocate for letting them work remotely I'm an advocate for a results-only work environment. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, because you can work as little as you want if you get the results done. And two, it holds your supervisor, your manager, the company responsible for results. So like the thing about like just having somebody put the hours in, like you're talking about the water cooler people that they're putting in 12 hours a day but not getting anything done, it's laziness on the manager perspective, because they don't have any responsibility really of holding you accountable to what needs to be done. You're putting in your hours and you put these softball goals out there, or maybe they're hard goals, and but you don't measure whether you've gotten there or not. So like if you're responsible for a department, a group organization, then those results need to be like really, really clear, and let your employees do whatever they need to do to get that done. They're going to perform a heck of a lot better than you just sitting there watching the clock and then being bitter they have to sit in their cubicle for longer than necessary to get their job done, potentially. So I think it's one thing. There's a lot of companies out there. Best Buy over here in the U.S. is one that's done it and showed good results. It's not like the concept for all different types of companies. Like there's call centers and stuff like that. Well, a lot of those are remote now too, but there's if you were involved like a manufacturing plant and you had to be there to watch the plant, then obviously you can't do that sort of thing. But for office environments, I have a vision, especially for millennials, right? I'm 37, so I'm not a millennial, but I work with a lot of millennials, and they have that mindset that like it's not about working your way up. It's about giving back. It's about flexibility, autonomy, the environment, like those sort of drivers that the millennials have. Like I want to marry the millennials with the progressive thinking companies that don't care how much time you spend in your cubicle. Just get it done. That's productive.
Yeah, definitely. So Nick, I'm just watching the clock here. We're on half an hour or so. We're going to have to try and wrap it up a little bit. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with before we go? Yeah,
well, I mean, I know you're interested in I didn't give too many details on like the corporate boundaries and hacking things. So one thing like that, if you are in a cubicle, there's a couple little hacks that you can do that have worked pretty well for me. Is one, if you keep a headset on, then and somebody strolls by to ask you a question, they don't really know whether you're on the phone or not, so it's a deterrent. So that's one thing that it was pretty good. So like a headset's better than headphones. Headphones work too though, but like there's certain people that would roll up into the cubicle, right? And they just start talking. They just for me, that's like complete, like just disrespect for anything that you're doing, right? They don't care what you're working on. What they're doing is more important. It kind of goes in the realm of like email and other people's agendas for going through your day. So I just recommend, like, the first thing I do is turn around, give them like I'm sorry, I have a lot going on right here, but I will give you, if you can get it done in 3 minutes, then we can have this conversation now. If not, I have a 15-minute opening at 3:15 p.m. or 3:30 or 2:50, whatever time works for you. But the point is, like, you're scheduling the interruption. They're not coming to your space and doing what they need to do. You're giving them boundaries. You're setting boundaries. And the more you plant seeds over time in corporate, the better off you're going to be. Like, another thing that when I did achieve the flexibility and do what I wanted to do in and out of the office, there's times where I used to show up like at 10 o'clock because I was either working at a coffee shop before I got to the office, or I had a plant visit or whatever. But the point is, like, they'd come in, oh, Nick, I see you're working banker's hours or whatever. I'm like, instead of just making an excuse or like getting defensive, like, I owned it. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm working banker's hours today. Tomorrow, I'm going to see if I can work 4 hours. Can I work 4 hours? Do you think I can do it? And like, just like, you own it. You know, I'm not in the office. I'm not going to give you an excuse for why I'm not in the office. Like, I'm not in the office. It's just, it is what it is. And the more I did that over time, I wasn't like a jerk about it, but like, it works. Like, you plant these small seeds, and then all of a sudden you're a leader. You're an example to the way culture should be in the office. It takes time. You've got to prove yourself, but you can do it.
As long as you're getting the results.
As long as you're getting, yeah, exactly. You can't just bluff off and figure out, try to pull some stuff. Yeah.
So it's wearing the headset, having a mean face, possible t-shirt with, butt out or something written on.
Maybe. Yeah. That might be taking a little extra far, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're saying. You've got to have a little bit of respect for people's time. But I think now you see a lot of people just, they need the answers so quickly, don't they? They haven't got time to wait, and they're coming in, they want it now.
Yeah, and that's because you give them the option to want it now. But
right.
there's like, you've got to work your way into this. Like, you can't just say, no, I'm not going to get it to you right now. Like, but you can question. The one thing you can always do is question. Okay, you want this now? Well, this is what I'm working on. This is what is my priority right now. Do you realize if it's your boss telling you, like, in order for me to get this now, then this is going to have to sit, and I'm going to have it done, 2 days from now versus, whatever, because these are the results that you've actually asked me to work on. Now you're telling me this is more important. And like, questioning it, making it kind of a pain for your boss to come by and ask you to do something, some urgent fire. It's effective, and it's not unethical. It's just, you're asking questions. You want to make sure they know what they're asking you to do. You know what I mean?
Brilliant.
Holding them accountable. Yeah.
Excellent. So, Nick, we're going to have to leave it there, but why don't you let our listeners know where they can find you? You've got your own podcast as well, yeah? I
do. It's the Make It Snappy Productivity Show, makeitsnappyshow.com. If you want that, so I told you I'm in a beta test group right now that's going exceedingly well for this accountability. It's called Real Accountable. It's a group it's my platform. It's going to be the most effective, results-driven accountability platform on the planet, I believe. And it's showing signs of that right now. So if you want to check out that group, I don't even have anything to sell your listeners right now because I'm not doing coaching, but we can talk and see if you're a good fit for that group. It's going to be around $97 a month to join the group. But I am going to run, if you want to pre-sell and get in on the accountability thing, $75 from now until Christmas. Just go to makeitsnappyshow.com/application. We could talk about it, give you some more information. We'll just have a quick 15-minute call and see where your head's at, see if you'd be a good fit, because I screened. The one thing about accountability is you got to have the right people in the program. And if people are just tire kickers and they talk a good game, but they're not taking action, they're not for my group, and I'm gonna screen them out. So if you want to, if you think you're that type of person and you're willing to have a conversation with me or somebody on my staff, then go to makeitsnappyshow.com/application, and we can talk about it.
Excellent. I'll link those up in the show notes, Nick.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you want just free accountability, where you can actually get paid or partnered up with an accountability partner, you can join my Facebook group. It's called Productive on Purpose. POP, you can become one of my poppers. And Ian, I'm Snapp, right? I'm Snapp, and then I have Pop. So I still am looking for a crackle to really to go all the way, close that loop for full circle. But if you want to join my Facebook group, then text the word accountable to 44222, and we'll set you up to get in the Facebook group.
Brilliant. Excellent stuff. Well, thanks, Nick. I've thoroughly enjoyed our time.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Ian.
Thanks to Nick Snapp there. I really enjoyed hearing Nick's story at the top of the episode. You know, I think it adds so much value when you can hear real world journeys. real challenges around covering your salary to pay the bills, starting a business and then pivoting and changing focus. These are very natural occurrences when you set out on your journey, and I don't think we hear about these enough, actually. So drop me a line, industryangel.com, with your feedback, or if you've been on a few of these journeys, or if you've got your own tales about water cooler colleagues. So until next time, I'm Ian Farah, this is the Industry Angel, and I'm definitely not wearing women's knickers.